Hello, welcome to another episode of How to Level Up. This is a Demon Hunter. So this is a deck which I've actually done pretty well with recently. I've got to Diamond 5. So it's kind of like an amazing deck, I would say. It's much better than a lot of the stuff around. It's one of those things that, like, I was thinking about this. There's like a lot of decks which are not as popular as others, but that doesn't mean that they're not, like, still got a high win rate. Because if you think about it, if like a lot of people play decks that don't have if a lot of people play decks like that are kind of niche and they don't do that well, they won't ever get a high win rate. So then they won't ever like garner mainstream sort of support. So it's kind of an interesting way of looking at it. Like if basically like you know. So but anyway, the point is that this deck is really really good, and it was actually spurred on by the fact that I got this card, Zai the Incredible. I actually got golden. It's only the second golden I've ever got. Golden legendary, obviously, and this is a really strong card, and it's because the battle cry is not. It obviously synergizes so well with Demon Hunter, but the great thing is it's not an outcast itself. If you think of like a card like Stelina or something for Demon Hunter, that has to be an outcast just to trigger the effect. This doesn't need to. This can be anywhere in your hand. And what's also really cool about it, the effect of it, is that it actually puts the left-hand card in the left-hand slot. So if you copied to Skull of Gul'dan, you would then be able to have two proper Skull of Gul'dan plays. You could outcast both of them. But generally, like, and there's all sorts of things you might want to copy. Another cool thing to copy is Fel Guardians, because if this is discounted, you could copy it and get another discounted version out. But the thing about this deck, and the reason probably why it's not like as popular, is because it's actually not that easy to play at all. It's much harder to play than like say your like Bogspine Knuckles deck or anything like that, which is just sort of like, or like, just any other like Hunter or like Face deck or Rogue or anything. It's a completely different way of looking at things. Like, probably a good way to start by talking about it is Fellscreen Blast. If you do a Fellscreen Blast, a good way to look at it is like this. Okay, so put down a Rascal Naga. There's nothing on the opponent's board. Then you can place down a Coordinated Strike, and then you can do a Fellscreen Blast, and that will do 9 damage to the enemy hero. So if you look at it that way, that gets you that's like one way that you could do a lot of damage to your opponent. Now a lot of stuff will be discounted if you've played any Skull of Gul'dans. If you get like the most important card in this deck is Rascal Naga, 100%, right? And the other most important card is Knife Juggler. These are what are actually going to do the real damage to the enemy. Like if you play, but there's also like things like that aren't necessarily immediately apparent, like Expendable Performers. It doesn't like clarify this like properly in the card text. But basically, if you have a board, you could, for instance, do Knife Juggler into Expendable Performers, and then like that's going to be doing 6 damage along with the 6 rush, right? So that'll be 12 damage spread across all enemies, and then you could get another set. So then that's going to be, you can imagine how much damage that's going to do, right? Because their board will be empty by then, most likely. So so that would be like another 7, another 6 damage, and then you'll also have the rush ability as well. So anything apart from like a very like millions and millions priest with is going to, their board will be wiped. Um, and that is like sort of how you do it. Another important thing to do is to do to glaives. You can glaive your guardians. So as long as you've got your Naga on board, that's going to be doing 3 damage each time you do a glaive. But I mean, it's just, this deck is just something which is like, it is completely new way of playing. It's probably the first deck with Demon Hunter that I thought was, wow, this deck is like amazing, and it is amazing. It's tokens. It's almost like very early Druid, like when Force of Nature were charging minions. It's similar. It's hard to it's like very much like you can get just the amount of damage you can get in, like, there are obviously decks which are like OTK decks, which are just designed to give like masses amount of damage once you collect all the pieces. But I've always preferred decks that can do maybe slightly less. I mean, because they are ridiculous amounts of damage, maybe slightly less damage, but you don't necessarily. I mean, you still do kind of need pieces, but I don't know. This is just a deck you just have to play a lot of to really understand just how good it is. But even on a certain level though, like you're probably going to want to play Parade Leader early on. You would Renowned Performer is a really clutch card, especially it combos very well with Knife Juggler, and because it will get. I mean, it combos well with both Knife Juggler and Parade Leader. Parade Leader is the card that you probably won't mind losing the most. Like this is sort of like something that like if you happen to get it late game and you can combo it with say maybe a Command the Illidari, that can do really well. Probably could force like a warrior into a brawl, or it'll force AOE. Even Parade Leader into the lesser one, the Coordinated Strike, will force AOE. Feast of Souls is often very important as well, because if you play like a very quick, like if you're playing against a quick deck, you're going to want to play certain cards. You always want to hold on to Hogsteed. Basically, any of these set here. These 5 cards: Hogsteed, Juggler, Leader, Strike, Felhound, and also Renowned Performer. Even Command the Illidari. They're going to be good cards you can play at the beginning. Fel Guardians is also very useful to play. So you can, for instance, trade your Coordinated Strike on 3, strike on 3, and you can play Fel Guardians for 4. That is like a simple way of looking at that. So this can trade completely then into a 4, and you might have already played your Knife Juggler the previous turn, so that would give you another 3. But I think probably but I guess the thing is, it's kind of random. Some of it is kind of random, but it's not. That's probably why it's so like enjoyable to play. Because obviously, like, yeah, I mean that's really just a way of looking at it. You can also, and it's just a case of, do you trade, like if you've got the Naga on, if this is, like I said, if this is 0 mana, then you're very likely going to win. And Death and Darmus also, like if you were playing just like very much like on curve, Death and Darmus is a good way to just get your 2 10 cost minions. Obviously that the 1/1 rabbit is not necessarily the best minion you can get. It depends who you're playing against really, but I think since Battlegrounds, people put their taunts on the edges. I don't know, but Felhound, this is pretty good for 3/6, but more than good enough as a 2/5 to put out. 2/5 taunt is still a good card. Yeah, I mean 2/5 taunt is a good card. Yeah, I mean I remember the days when like Felcree was a 5 mana 3/6, and that was seen as a good card. And then Shieldmaster was a 4 mana 3/5. So it's not exactly. I know obviously things have upgraded a bit since then, but it depends what you're. A lot of the time what you're playing against is you're playing against a range of. You're not necessarily playing against like an exact stat line. You're playing against a range of stat lines, so that's why it probably seems like it's okay sometimes to play it for 3. And Skull of Gul'dan, if you can, one of the like, I mean, there's 2 reasons why you want to do like these burst damage with Knife Juggler and with your charge minion. One is obviously when you're getting close to lethal, but the other is to actually clear their board. Because if they've got a clear board, because often you have a situation where you manage to clear their board and you're going to have loads of little minions on board. They might use an AoE. There's the time to use Skull of Gul'dan, because they just use an AoE. Because that gives you a massive advantage, even though you might not get much board presence. And honestly, you probably will get board presence. Like, because it reduces by 3, any card, so 19 cards, right, that you're going to pull, they could easily be 0 mana. So you could easily get a Felhound, you could easily get a Coordinated Strike, you could easily get a Parade Leader, Knife Juggler, and you will do a lot of these sorts of cards. So, but Throw Glaive is very, very important. Like, there's so many different ways that this is important. Playing a rogue, you do very little in the opening turns. They have like a 1/2, a 1/2. They have the 1/2 with Reborn that will make a 3/1. You can pop all those off turn 4, no problem. And that will just clear their board if you just don't happen to have what you need there. But it's obviously very, very useful, like to deal with it. Expendable Performance is just an amazing card. I mean, that's 14 damage to minions, and and you can always back it up, and you can always like where the deck I guess gets tricky is with Wrathscale Naga, because you have to know, like, you can't exactly predict what's going to happen with Wrathscale Naga, like, because you see, if you trade your minions in, what it may happen is that your minions may actually die. Your minions, their minions may die too early. You don't want their minions to die early, right? You're trying to get their face, but if obviously it hits all their minions, eventually you can predict just by randomness that all the minions will die. But I mean, and if you look at it that way, I guess if you have like five bursts of 3 damage to a random enemy, and they have like a 2, and they have like a 2 health and a 3 health there, you can predict that you're going to get 9 damage to the enemy hero, for instance. We can't predict. You'll know that for certain, right? Like, I guess when it gets to the point, like, well, can you know that for certain? I'm trying to think if you know that for certain. Like, it's tricky, because especially when you do like if you hit the, yeah, well, you do know that you know that for certain. What you don't know for certain though is if you hit something with 2 health with a 1/1, when it dies, you don't want that to hit the enemy with 1 health, because that is no way you're losing. It will happen though. So it's like, that's why if you're trading, you want to trade in your higher attack minions first, because that way, like, if something had 2 health, then you could trade that in, and it might hit an enemy with, say, 6 health, but it's not gonna hit something with 1 health. Right, so that's really like a good way of looking at it. But again, it's just a matter of practice, like, and often like a way to, and I guess even like in a way, you could think of, if you happen to have, like, when you're doing your Naga plays, if you happen to have a glaive and they've got an enemy with 2 health, because remember, this can target both, so it's like you may want to clear the enemy first. There's all sorts of ways. Sometimes you want to do the through glaive on your own enemies. It's all about, how can we maximize the damage Naga gets to face, basically. That's just how it works. And most of the time, just the level of damage that Naga can do is so high that it doesn't really matter that much. But there will be, but I think one thing I've noticed though is, as you level up, like, you do get like a position where, you get to a position where there's just less cards, less options, because people are playing more optimally anyway. But it's trickier between Diamond 10 and 5. Like, I would say Diamond 7 to Diamond 5 is easier than Diamond 10 to Diamond 7. Just because it's like there's less options, right? But yeah, like I say, Feast of Souls, very good card reload. There's even times, like, not that many times I guess, but where I've thought, should I just play this without the reduction in cost? If you have quite a solid board, it's maybe worth considering. Like, there's things you would never play this in, like, the original Demon Hunter decks without reduction in cost. But if it's like you've both got very few cards, you might, I mean, I don't know. I still don't really think that's a good idea. You really would prefer to play Feast of Souls. But yeah, you want to get at least three cards from that. Like, well, I guess 2 cards is enough. Like, if you count Mage, Arcane Intellect as 3 mana, draw 2 cards as like the benchmark, then I would say, yeah, 2 cards. You need at least 2 cards. I mean, to be honest, though, I just think because of the way that there's so many rush minions in the deck. But yeah, this combos with literally every single thing. Remember, there's all sorts of interesting things you can do here. Like, I mean, there's just so many plays that. I mean, it's just an amazing deck. I know I did not mean to do that. I got so excited about how good a deck it was, but yeah. Anyway, the combo I was thinking of was Renowned Performers. If you have a Knife Juggler on board, you put Renowned Performers down. You'll trade into 3, and then you're going to get the 2 extra minions. So you're going to get 3 damage from those Knife Jugglers. And then you could also, for instance, play an Animated Broomstick. Broomstick also works very well with Guardian. And yeah, I mean, But yeah, remember, this is going to do like, this card is very useful if they've got nothing on board. Like, you can just get 9 damage easily. If your Naga was 0, you can they got nothing on board. 0 Naga, Coordinated Strike, Fell Screen Blast. That's 4 mana, deal 9 damage to the enemy hero. So, I mean, yeah. Like, this is basically a third the cost when you think about it that way. If you think about it just doing damage to your own minions, it's a third the cost. So, but then again, like if you like Fel Guardians really, I mean Throwglaive really is very good with Fel Guardians. So another combo would, for instance, put down your Naga, put down this for 0, and then 3 Throwglaives, 9 damage to the enemy hero for 6 mana. So lots of different ways of thinking of it. And yeah, I think that will do anyway, so thanks for watching.